Welcome to Galveston Unscripted. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Galveston Unscripted. Today, I sit down with Sam Collins III. We discuss the Juneteenth Legacy Project, Juneteenth becoming a national holiday, the Absolute Equality mural, the year 1528, and the Galveston Giant, Jack Johnson. Sam Collins has been a key player in the Galveston community for years. Let's go ahead and jump right into my conversation with Sam Collins III. Here we are. Thank you so much, Sam, for joining me in my new office building at the Marmo. I really, really appreciate you joining me today for Galveston Unscripted.
Great way to kick off the new year.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. This podcast is actually spread across the nation and even some other countries like Europe and Australia and things like that. So it's kind of interesting how far this podcast has actually grown a little bit. The reach, yeah. So please tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, Sam Collins III, born on the island. So there's always individuals are asking, are you BOI? And I tell everybody's BOI. Born on island, born off island. Yeah. So don't get too disturbed if someone tells you you're not BOI. You just tell them, I'm born off island. I am. My parents both born on the island, and my grandmother's maternal and paternal born on the island. So we have a long history here. My great-grandparents, one set came here in 1925, so almost 100 years of connection to the island, and then I've traced my family roots back to the 1850s to the San Felipe Sealy area, and then further back than that to North Carolina in the mid-1700s. So that's a little bit of my own family research. I'm a husband to my wife Doris that teaches third grade at L.A. Morgan. We have 4 beautiful children, 2 girls, 2 boys. 25, 23, 21, and 12.
Oh, my God. What a spread.
Yeah, well, right there at the end, that was the only spread. The other ones were pretty close together. Yeah. We were younger then.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we have 2 boys, 2 girls. They're doing excellent. Very proud of them. And very proud of the work that we're doing together as a family unit. My wife, of course, I mentioned she teaches third grade, and, where would we be without teachers? They are undervalued in our society, and they have the most valuable asset in our communities, our children, in shaping the minds of those future leaders and next generation. So I always want to acknowledge her work and the work of other educators, and I do my part out here and teaching outside the walls of the school, but she's there every day on the front lines with the children, helping them to become the future leaders of our communities.
I love that. So I understand that you really are a historian, not only for Galveston, but for the country and the world. You have jumped into a lot of these amazing historical events. Of course, last year in 2021, Juneteenth became a national holiday. Could you tell us a little bit about what that means to you, Galveston, and also tell us a little bit about the Absolute Equality mural over there?
Sure. Last year in 2021, on June 17th, President Biden signed into law making Juneteenth a national holiday. Now, the thing that I say often is Juneteenth has always been important to the former enslaved and their descendants, and it has been celebrated since June 19th, 1865. It became more popular in 2020, and then this snowball effect of the popularity led to the national holiday. Even though there had been a national group formed in 1994, the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. They had been working for 26, 27 years before it became very popular. Mm-hmm. And last year, of course, led by the grandmother of Juneteenth, Miss Opal Lee, who's 95 now. I think she's come to Galveston twice. We invited her in September of 2019. Before Juneteenth really became popular, she had started a petition. That petition had maybe 8,000 to 10,000 signatures before the unfortunate events of George Floyd, which led to this awakening of consciousness around certain issues. And then her petition took off and reached 1.5 million signatures,
Wow.
which she eventually delivered to Washington, D.C. But there have been many individuals working along the way that are less known. Reverend James B. Thomas, local activist, politician, minister, father, uncle, cousin, brother, all those things. He really pushed to get Juneteenth recognized here locally in the 1970s when he couldn't get support here from elected officials. He eventually started working with Representative Al Edwards. Representative Al Edwards then was able to get Texas to recognize Juneteenth as a state holiday in 1979. And the thing about that is 100 years before that, Robert Evans, state representative, had introduced a bill to make Juneteenth a state holiday, but it failed in 1879. Yep. So my only point is that this history has been ever present and being celebrated. It is just now on a national platform where everyone is learning about it, and it's important that we tell the full story and tell what happened here in Galveston that changed the lives of not only the enslaved, but the enslavers also, and all involved. It was not perfect. I often quote that Juneteenth celebrates the evolution of our country to a more perfect union. We were not perfect in 1528, in 1619, 1776, 1865, 2020, 2021, or even today. We're not a perfect union, but hopefully we're moving towards that more perfect union in which we will see absolute equality, in which every individual will have an equal opportunity to develop and become their very best self, without hurdles or barriers being placed in front of them to hinder their growth or development. Because as we become better individuals, we become better families, better neighborhoods, better communities, better cities, counties, states, country, and hopefully a better world.
Speaking of 1528, I know that's a very significant year for Galveston, for honestly, North America. Can you tell us why 1528 is such an important date and maybe expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, after listening to one of your podcasts and learning about Cabasa de Vaca and Estevanica, I already knew about Estevanica.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But no, I would encourage individuals to go back and listen to your podcast on that subject. But for many individuals, the 1619 date has been referenced and somewhat controversial with how do we write the history of our country and what does it mean to point out these facts of events in our past. But here in Galveston, the first non-native enslaved individual and first African to make it to these shores was Mustafa Azemmouri, who was later referred to as Esteban or Estevanica. So his name before coming here was Mustafa. And that is something we need to acknowledge, his humanity and who he was even before coming here to these shores. And then also expand the narrative around the work that he did to explore this area, this land, and his work to communicate with the natives, that he was really leading that effort. Not enough has been talked about with regards to his contributions to that exploration.
Absolutely.
He's been a footnote, but we're going to see if we can get a chapter in a book. And there's actually some books out there on him.
Yeah. And that's one thing I would love to do before I do an episode on him, is do a real deep dive, read a few books and really learn a lot about his life. And I understand he was a linguist. He was really that, and that was one of the major contributions he made, was he was able to actually learn a native language pretty quickly and communicate.
Well, when we think about it, even in today's society, we stress that individuals need to learn English and they need to speak properly and they need to learn the language. But when we think about individuals around the world and other countries, some of those individuals speak fluently in 3, 4, 5 different languages, sometimes more than that. So they are very intelligent individuals, and we could learn something from our worldly neighbors. Right?
Absolutely.
We are at a disadvantage if we only speak one language or two languages. That's not the world of the future.
Absolutely not.
We need to realize that we need to be able to communicate in multiple languages and do it fluently, which brings me to something that artist Ted Ellis talks about with regards to art. If you want to speak multiple languages, you use art because everyone can see and understand and interpret that in their own, I guess, perspectives. And that is something that I learned from him. He's been working over 30 years with his art. He's from New Orleans. His work is on display at the Juneteenth Legacy Project headquarters in the Neocultural Center on the Strand, 2217 Strand, Suite 101, where the mural is located, the Absolute Equality mural that was completed by artist Reginald Adams and the team, the creatives, Kadavian Baylor, Joshua Bennett, Dantrell Boone, Samson Adenube, and Cherry Meekins were a part of that team. And then also prior to the mural being placed at that location, we had a sketch done by a young artist named Chase Sampe. And this is an important piece of the story. She's a young artist in grad school at Florida State University. And she did the actual first sketch of Granger seated at a table with the soldiers standing, many of them being United States colored troops. And that was the central part of the project. And then we expanded from there to incorporate other pieces of the story.
Beautiful. Speaking of General Granger, a lot of people have heard General Granger's name, but there's another name associated with the Juneteenth holiday and the signing of General Order Number 3, Major Frederick Emory.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, Major Frederick Emory is actually the individual that wrote and signed General Order Number 3. So when individuals visit the mural, they will notice that Granger is seated at the desk signing General Order Number 1. And many individuals question, well, wasn't it General Order Number 3 that freed the enslaved people? And that is true. So the image that Chase Sampe painted after doing her initial sketch actually has Granger and Emory in it. And I think it's the first painting to ever capture this part of the story in which Emory is seated at the desk writing General Order Number 3 and signing it. General Granger was, of course, in charge of the state of Texas and the soldiers. So he gave the order to Emory to write it. But Granger had received those orders from Philip Sheridan. Most of that language was already, according to a book, Juneteenth, written by Ed Cotham. He did a lot of research and found that other general orders had been written with some of the same language, except that middle part, the second sentence, where it says, this involves an absolute equality. And this is where we get the language for the title of the mural and also this subject matter of what is absolute equality. Not equal results, but as I stated, it is the equal opportunity to become and develop into your very best self without hurdles or barriers in place. So Emory is a very big part of the story that has been left out. Again, you could find Ed Cotham's book on Juneteenth, which was released amazingly at the beginning of May of 2021. So his time, he had been working on it, I think, 10 years or longer, and it actually came out right before Juneteenth became a national holiday. Wow. So talking about timing. The other important thing, the reason I think everyone should buy Ed's book is because there's a wonderful picture of me in it. In the back of the book, Ed does include a short little blurb there to me regarding the Juneteenth marker that is on the corner of 22nd and Strand. So that is the southwest corner is where the Union headquarters were located in 1865, where Granger and his soldiers set up their headquarters and issued General Order Number 3.
Amazing. All right, so I kind of want to transition. I know you only have a few more minutes, or maybe 15 minutes. I kind of want to transition just to some general Galveston history. Could we talk about the Galveston Giant a little bit? I know you know a little bit about the Galveston Giant.
Yeah, the Galveston Giant, Jack Johnson, is Galveston's most famous native son. So Jack Johnson traveled the world when most individuals didn't go more than 50 miles from their place of birth. He wanted to become the very best in the world at his profession. So imagine if you become the very best to host podcasts, interviews.
It's a tall ladder to climb, I'll tell you.
Well, the thing is, we should all strive to be the best in whatever field we're in, to be the best individuals we could be, first of all. But Johnson didn't want to be the best Black or African-American boxer. He just wanted to be the best boxer. And I have said in other interviews that Johnson is the first to truly be a world champion, because heavyweight world champion, because prior to him having an opportunity to fight for the heavyweight title, African Americans or Blacks had not had a chance. So the champions prior to that had not fought all the best athletes. So when Johnson won the title, he broke down many barriers. So he was the first to take all comers. Mm-hmm. And later he took more. And after he won the title, he would take more white fights than fights with Black boxers, because they were harder fights. Mm-hmm. And, he was just a businessman. Yep. He was like, why would I take the tougher fight when I could fight some of these lesser opponents? And, people want to pay to see that opponent beat me, whereas they're not paying as much to see two Black athletes fight each other, because they had a colored heavyweight champion belt too, and Johnson had won that in 1905. Mm-hmm. So basically from 1905 to 1915, when he lost the title for a decade, Johnson was pretty much the baddest man on the earth. Yep. At least he held that title as heavyweight champion. And he was born here in Galveston, March 31st, 1878. So 13 years, or almost 13 years after emancipation, because June of 65 is a little less than 13 exactly. So his parents had got married here on the island. He was born in 78, grew up, survived the 1900 storm. As I stated, went on to win the colored heavyweight championship in 1905, and then the heavyweight championship in 1908, and then defended it in the Battle of the Century in 1910 against Jim Jeffries on July 4th, 1910. So this Galveston Giant is someone that needs to be celebrated by everyone that has a goal to become the very best in their profession or to become the very best individual. And I often say that I have two daughters, and I would not have wanted Johnson to date my daughters because he was an athlete and very popular. Yep. So as a father, I don't think I've wanted anybody to date my daughters. Yeah. That's just the thing. Yeah. So since I couldn't beat him up, the best thing would be just to keep him away. But if I was a gambling man, I definitely would have been betting on Johnson in the ring, because he was the best of his time. He was a defensive fighter. He didn't take a lot of punishment. He didn't get hit a lot. There were some writers that saw this as being a coward, because at the time they would just position that you just should be aggressive and just get in there and just beat each other up. And Johnson was just smarter than that. Yep. And he didn't take a lot of that punishment that other boxers did. And it's not to say that he wasn't aggressive, because when he had to attack, he did attack. So there's some great footage of him in the ring, and he was a very skilled fighter.
Beautiful. I love it. And I understand he learned to box, or really started his boxing career on the docks of Galveston.
Yeah, this was his training ground. This was his home, Galveston, Texas. He came back after he won the title. They were actually supposed to have a parade for him. He won the title December 26, 1908. They were going to have a parade in March of 1909, but that got canceled because of the views of individuals during the time in which they didn't approve of his relationships, and which eventually led to him being convicted of the Mann Act in 1913, which he was pardoned in 2018. So he died in 1946, so it was many years after his death, but it was an effort to right the wrong of that conviction from 1913, which was racially driven at the time.
moving on to a little bit of Galveston economics here. One thing I learned from you, actually, deep diving online, was T.D. Armstrong.
Yeah. In, I believe it was May of 62, Mr. Armstrong, Thomas Du Bois, his middle name was D-E-B-O-Y, I believe, because he was, when he was born, he was the only boy in the family. So he was Du Bois. Thomas Du Bois Armstrong was listed as one of the top 100 richest Negroes in America, which is amazing. Not in Galveston, not in Texas, not in, the South. It was in America. And he had several businesses here. He had a drugstore, hotel, gas station, insurance company, one of the most successful insurance companies at the time. I believe it was Tyler Insurance. So just a very rich history here on the island of success and accomplishment by individuals like T.D. Armstrong and Jack Johnson.
Beautiful. So one thing that I'm a little bit embarrassed by, I was born here in Galveston, BOI, but grew up here, a mixture between here and Texas City. And always heard of Juneteenth, always celebrated Juneteenth with my friends. But one thing I did not know was about the 1867 settlement, just right up the road, literally a few miles away from where I grew up. Can you tell us a little bit about the 1867 settlement?
Yeah, so after emancipation, many of the former enslaved were looking to settle in various areas. Some of them became sharecroppers on existing plantations where they were living. But in some cases, like in Texas City, when white landowners were willing to actually sell land, in Texas City, 10-acre tracts were being sold, and the 1867 settlement was established. Britton, Bell, Hopgood, and Phillips, and I'm trying to think of the other early settlers of that area. But that 1867 settlement was a Reconstruction community in which African Americans bought land and settled, built homes, churches, schools, and eventually had a very thriving community that was literate. So many of the individuals in that area could read, which was their in census records, their literacy rates was often higher than the average in other communities across the South. So education was important to them. That 1867 settlement community is still in existence. It is on the National Register of Historic Places. The community has, of course, transitioned over time. An unintended consequence of integration was a destruction of many of the Black businesses, which dried up resources in the community there. So it was a little blighted, but they're trying to revive it. There's a 1887 Frank Bell home that is there. The Brittons still have property, and the other families that I talked about, Hopkins and others in that community that was bought way back in the 1860s. So land and land ownership is important. Home ownership is important. So for those families that still own property there, they take a great deal of pride. And Mr. Armstrong was in business with Frank Bell Jr. So they had a realty company called Bell, Armstrong, and Patrick, BAMP, and they developed much of that area around Carver Park.
Yep.
In that 1867 settlement community.
Beautiful. Just one or two more questions. I know you only got a few more minutes. So speaking of land ownership, and since we're speaking off of Galveston Island, can you tell us a little bit about Henry Martin Stringfellow? Yeah,
Mr. Stringfellow was a Confederate soldier that fought in the Battle of Galveston on January 1st, 1863. He was ordered to Galveston in October of 1862. After the Civil War was over, he settled in Galveston in the 45th and Avenue N area. He had an orchard there on about 5 acres, was very successful at that location. He needed more land or wanted more land. He also wanted to get away from the storms. And he moved over to Hitchcock in the early 1880s. Built his home there, had over 30 acres. He and his wife had one son, Leslie. Unfortunately, their son Leslie died in 1886, so not long after moving off the island. Stringfellow stayed there until the early 1890s and then moved back to Galveston. And when they moved, they had buried their son on the property in Hitchcock, and they moved him back to Lakeview Cemetery here in Galveston. Yep. So they moved his body back. But yeah, that Mr. Stringfellow's home is still there in Hitchcock. It is now listed on the National Register of Historic Places. I was able to get it listed in 2013.
Oh, great.
My wife and I purchased it in December of 2005, and we began having our very first Juneteenth celebration on June 17th, 2006, which was 15 years to the day of June 17th, 2021, when Juneteenth became a national holiday. So we've been on this 15-year journey. I spoke a little bit about the mural. The mural is kind of the baby that was birthed after many labor pains. So that was the pains of all of the leaders that worked prior to me. It included also the work of individuals like Mr. Ted Ellis and myself with the traveling exhibit to help spread the message of Juneteenth that we've been taking all over the country for years. It includes the work of many individuals here on the island. And I hate to start listing names because somebody's going to listen to the show and you say you left out this person or you didn't say that person. So I want it to be all inclusive of anybody that's ever done any commemorative work to share the history of Juneteenth is included in this. Sometimes I use a story of, people, I'm also an associate minister. People say, well, it's not necessary to go to church every Sunday and you don't have to be in the church to be a good person. And I understand that. And sometimes you forget a message or something that was given to you or that you heard. But if you think back to any particular day over the last 20 years, can you remember what you ate on December 13th, 2009?
No way.
What did you eat January 3rd, 2012? No way. But it was important that you had that nourishment for your body to sustain your life on a regular basis. So the work that was done to sustain the history of Juneteenth all along the way, before it became popular, before it became commercialized, before everybody knew the story, there were people doing the work to keep it alive.
Yep.
And now this Galveston baby birthed in 1865 has grown up and has his PhD and has traveled the world and has experience. But there's no place like home. No matter who tells the Juneteenth story, no matter where people celebrate Juneteenth, it will always be tied to the city of Galveston and this beautiful island that we call home, where individuals born on the island and individuals born off island can come to the location in which this history was made and see this beautiful mural that we now have in our community that tells the story from Estenvenico at the beginning, all the way up to the current events of still marching toward absolute equality. There have been a couple of modifications to the mural for those that have not seen it. Miss Opal Lee was added. Representative Al Edwards and Reedy Chapel was added in December. And we want to thank the mural artists for their work to bring this amazing mural to our community. And we want everyone to travel to Galveston to see it. And if you can't travel to Galveston, we are working with Texas A&M University to create some augmented reality and some opportunities in which people may be able to virtually walk the streets of Galveston and see these historic structures and historic sites and maybe experience this wonderful history and learn more about this history. This is part of what I call our history salad. The lettuce and tomatoes are the stories that you hear all the time. These are the stories of the founding fathers and early settlers. But this history salad includes lettuce, tomatoes, pickles, onions, bell peppers, bacon bits, all kinds of things. It's right before lunchtime. You're getting hungry. I
was really hoping to get a good Sam Collins analogy on the podcast, and This is it. I love it.
Yeah, this is one of the favorite that everyone likes, this history salad. The first to kind of talk about that salad was Mr. Alex Pratt at College of the Mainland. And I was able to expand on some of his descriptive images in the salad to kind of add my own little Sam Collins twist to it. But yeah, this history salad is made up. It's not we're not made to blend and just become one thing. You know, like this salad. Each piece of the salad has its own little kind of flavor. Yep. Right. And that's what makes it so wonderful. And that's what makes it exciting, that maybe you can bite into that pepper and get a little spice or, the texture of something different. And we want to celebrate our differences without diminishing it. So, there are some people that just want to eat lettuce and tomatoes. Yep. And, they can eat lettuce and tomatoes.
I'm telling you, they're missing the spice of life. I'll tell you, they really are.
You said it, not me. So we want to spice up this history. So as individuals come into Galveston, we want them to learn this great history of this island, this wonderful place that we call home. Whether you were born here, live on the island, or don't live on the island, if you have a connection to the island, this is your home too.
Perfect. So where can people go to support any of the projects you've mentioned today? Where can people go to support?
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing here, instead of trying to form a new nonprofit organization that would take resources away from existing nonprofits that have been doing this work for decades, we partnered with the NEA Cultural Center. And the NEA Cultural Center is run by Executive Director Sue Johnson. She has an amazing staff. She's expanding that staff as more economic support is coming into the organization. So I would say support the NEA Cultural Center. I think it's neacultural.org. And then we also have a Juneteenth Legacy Project website. It was mainly formed for the mural project, but we are in partnership with NEA to do other programming here on the island. And you can go to www.juneteenthlegacyproject.com and get more information. But the NEA cultural site is the one that I would direct individuals to first. And then just personally, I have a website, truthstrong.org, www.truthstrong.org. I travel and I speak. I do motivational speaking, not just on history, but just speaking engagements in general. So you can find some information there, and you can Cash App me.
Well, I will add all of those links in the description of the podcast and wherever else this audio is found. Mm-hmm. One final question for you, Sam. When are you starting your own podcast?
Well, this is, I've been told I have that radio voice.
It's the radio voice, I'll tell you.
So hopefully next month we'll kick off a podcast talking about weapons of knowledge and empowerment.
Love it.
And, everybody wants to be woke.
That's woke.
So let's wake everybody up. Weapons of knowledge and empowerment. And what we want to do is share knowledge and information that will empower people to become better individuals. And this is something that is very important, not only to me, but many other partners of individuals that I work with in the community. As I stated, the NEA Cultural Center has a summer program, Freedom School, in which they share books and information with young students to help them not fall behind in the summer on their reading levels. Mm-hmm. And this is so important to help children not get to reading level, but to get above their grade level. We want them to be more prepared when they go back to school, not less prepared, and not trying to catch up. And this will help all of us. Frederick Douglass has a great quote. It's much easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. I'm not giving up on broken men or women or adults, but his quote is correct that it's easier to help shape the children when they're younger than to have to repair them after they've been broken when they're older. And that brokenness shows up in many examples. It's not just a brokenness of poverty and broken negative situations in which when you initially think of broken individuals, there are some very successful people that are broken. There are very successful people that are still seeking the approval of other individuals. And sometimes they still need to be healed, and we need to do the work to help heal those individuals, because hurt people. And we want to wake individuals up to heal those situations,
Well, Sam, I know you've got to go. Thank you so much for joining me on Galveston Unscripted. I really would love to have you on some other time. Maybe we could deep dive down some other history rabbit holes and all that. So I really appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for this invitation to be one of your first guests in 2022. Congratulations on your new location.
Thank you.
All of your success. And I tell everyone, tune in to Galveston Unscripted.
Thanks, man.
With J.R. Shaw.
Thanks, Sam. For historic resources or more information, check out the episode description.